Today, teaching on the business dimension is about attitudinal change and paradigm shift for the African. Attitudinal change and the paradigm shift for the African businessman. It is not news. We used to deal with real estate alone, but today we're going to talk about the mind, the paradigm shift. Because the challenges that we have in Africa today is that many of us, we have a defeatist mindset. We have a defeatist mindset. And I'm going to dwell a little bit on the general today. Next week, I'm going to dwell with individual businesses, because this is an introduction to a series which will run for 1 month. We talked about real estate for 1 month. Now we're talking about the economies. You see, I'm sure there was a video running around where the guy was speaking that Africa contributes only 0.5% to global trade. And in 1990, it rose to 0.9. That is not up to 1%. Yet the population of Africa represents almost 20% of the world population. And yet we contribute less than 1% of global trade. So what is the problem? Problem is that we have been conditioned to think that the guys that look different from us has more to offer to us than we have to offer to them. So my job today is to change our attitude. Attitudinal change is the key teaching today. But before we go into the personal attitudinal change, we need to create an understanding of the dimensions of the global economy. Okay? The problem that makes Africa struggle in the global committee of nations is because we import what we can produce and export our jobs to the other continents. We import what we can produce and export our job to other continents. And one of the things that makes us think this is because we have not put ourselves, channel our thinking, channel our everything to think global. We are living in a global village. You hear the global village in all dimensions, in all forums, in all summits. But most Africans think local. I'm sure Ugandans think Uganda or clan, tribe. They don't think about global. When I talk to people and I talk about global, they think I'm exaggerating. But you cannot live in a global world where the globe is a village and you think local. As long as you're thinking local, you will never compete in the global stage. It's not possible. It's not possible. Okay? When you think local, you're not exposed to know what's going on in the world. So if anybody brought the simplest, smallest idea that is all over the world here, you will be, oh, this is wonderful, because you're not global. We spend time on the internet and social media just to record gossip and to watch nonsense. Do you know that the version of TikTok that they watch in China is not the same you watch here? They don't do all these nonsense jokes on TikTok in China. China is more intellectual, more serious. So the TikTok owned by Chinese in China is used to advance the mind of the young people and on purpose feed you with junk for the rest of the world. So the more time you're wasting in TikTok watching a naked woman or a gyrating guy, somebody else is being shown an invention that is happening in Finland, an invention that is discovered in Germany. And the young people are more into something serious while you're feeding yourself with junk. That's what they say, junk in, junk out. So it's a strategic plan. China does not have any major company that do not align with their government agenda. Don't think that. Yes. We work all the way to the top of Chinese government with partners in China. They don't allow any major company to succeed in China without aligning with the government agenda. That's why you read sometimes, you see some big billionaires, they leave China. Once they want to deviate, they have to leave. If you're in China, you make all the money, but it must be in consonance with the agenda of the government. So some of you here in this country, when the government is telling you to go here, you want to go here, you're stupid actually, I'm telling you the truth. Because no matter how you like or hate your government, if you're not working in consonance with your government, you're not going anywhere. They tell you dictatorship, dictatorship. What did you think they called Singapore when Lee Kuan Yew that you're celebrating today was? Anybody can tell me? Lee Kuan Yew was called a despot by the West when he was shaping up Singapore. He was called a despot, a dictator, a tyrant. There's no name they didn't call him. He said he didn't care. What happened? They built a solid economy and a solid society. The same West now celebrates Singapore. I'm not holding brief for anybody, but what I'm trying to say is that we need to get our acts together. The people in government also need to seek out the talent and the resource of your people so you can use your people to build. You can't build a nation in isolation. Am I communicating? Because what I'm saying about importing what you can produce, government has their own role to play. But most importantly, the individuals have their role to play. I speak with many leaders of many nations in Africa because that's my own divine mandate. Raise people substantially spiritually, raise people substantially financially. And you can't do that if you're not working in consonant with the government of any nation you go to. But what I found out in African nations is the government is disjointed with the society. The society is disenchanted with government. How are we going to achieve it? To import things we don't need is because government and the society are not having an accord. Leadership is an agreement between the led and the leader. It's not one-sided. The led must believe in the leader. The leader must carry the led along. That's what true leadership is about. And when we find that in Africa, you will see progress. How did you think Magufuli of Tanzania made impact? Magufuli was not a democrat the way the West would want it. He was dictatorial in different dimensions, but he carried the people along. And when the people saw what impact his policies and his actions were doing, they lined up back behind him. And when COVID came, every country in the world was set back economically. That was actually the time Tanzania crossed over from poor country to middle-income country. Because he refused to believe the West. I'm not against the West, but we are in a global village, and it's the survival of the fittest. Most people, when they look at Africa as if it's a poor country. It is not. We all know that. I was in Spain talking to CEOs of the biggest companies in Europe, and I told them, they edited that in my recording, when they recorded my thing. But what I told them was, if God would put a wall between Africa and Europe for only 2 years, let's see who would survive. All the factories in Europe will close. The economy will crash. Africa will surge. I said it. That video, Fourth Industrial Revolution, that statement was there, but it was edited because that is a wake-up call. When the CTOs, after the meeting, they were all asking me so many questions. Why? Because I made them understand that without Africa, Europe will not survive. Without Europe, Africa will survive. It's mental colonization to make the African think, unless I go to Europe, I will not make it. That is economic bomb. Because the population of Europe is diminishing. The people paying taxes are diminishing. The people needing the tax money to support their retirement program are increasing. In the early 60s, there was what they call the baby boom. How many of you have heard about the baby boom? After the war, Europe had killed so many millions in the World War that there was a boom in making children. Children were being made like if it was a factory in Europe. So you see them today telling you child birth control. Who gave them birth control after the World War when Hitler killed millions? They were producing children like there was no tomorrow. Go and read the baby boomers. Baby boomers are people who are between the ages, today, the ages of 60 to 70, 60 to 75. Are you understanding? You need to understand the global dynamics in order to know that you are a global citizen. And you can't participate in the global citizenship if you don't know what's going on. So I'm going to introduce today what generally is going on. Then we're going to get into details. Then we come eventually when we will discuss Uganda's position in East Africa and how Uganda will play its role in the global economics. And then you can align yourself with that Ugandan agenda, and that's how you become successful. Uganda cannot be heading this way, and you're heading the opposite, and you're going to be successful. No matter how you like the leadership of your nation, it's either you go in the direction of the agenda, or you exit the country. Are we together? The previous leadership in Nigeria, in as much as they courted me to be made a minister, I rejected. And the best way to do is to leave the country. Don't stay there and start fighting. That's just the way it is, guys. Am I communicating? Yes. You either submit and obey or leave. Don't stay and say, I will not agree. Who are you? It's God that makes leaders. Is it in the scriptures? No matter what you think, God. So what we are dealing today is general about Africa. Then we're going to come to the East Africa. Then we're going to deal with Uganda. Then we're going to bring you into the plan so that you can be successful. You're going to learn things that they don't teach in MBA in Ivy League schools, because I'm an expert in the things concerning emerging markets, especially Africa. So now, where was I? We said that if we in Africa would align with our governments to produce what we need and not export jobs to Europe, then we have a chance. Are we together? Yes. And the only way we would have a chance is if the people buys into the agenda of the leadership. Are we together? Because they make policies, but policies don't work themselves. Humans work the policy, all right? So now, when you think you cannot process your own raw materials, you need an Indian, a Chinese, a German to process your own raw materials. You're actually inside what we call a mental slavery. I lived in Spain before I came here, and you see Africans dying in the Mediterranean to go to Spain, when Spain is actually a poor country. Are you guys aware? The only difference is that your currency is meant to be low, isn't it? So you have to use more of your currency to get one of their own. That's a political chess they played at your leadership. We'll get to that sometime. They just played what they call a political chess. I'm sure you saw a video of a young lady that's light-skinned wearing a black on TikTok, TED Talk. And she said, tell me how I own the diamonds. She's an African living in Europe. I have the gold. I have the platinum. I have the lithium. I have all the materials needed for industrialization, Africa. But then I have to use 1,000 of my own currency to get your $1 paper. How does that make sense? When you need those platinum, lithium, gold, and diamonds for your factories to run, something is not right in that equation. Does it make sense? If that makes sense, then you should ask yourself a question. What does these people know? I don't know. What they know that you don't know is because their ancestors conditioned you to think that they are better than you are. And my job today is to do that paradigm shift. And when their ancestors was here in the name of colonialism, evangelism, and whatever ism that is added to it, today is AIDS and development. Whenever you are being told that without me, that the helper that brings money to your nation, you cannot develop on your own, you're already handicapped because everybody is struggling for survival. When an Indian comes here, he's not coming here to develop your nation. Of course, he will employ people if he's having a plantation of sugar. He's going to employ people if he's doing construction. But I can tell you that 90% of that money will go back to India. Same thing with Chinese. And the European, one day I came to the Ministry of Finance and I saw a young kid in her mid-30s in the Ministry of Finance. And when I checked, she had a desk there. So I asked, what is this young lady doing? They told me she is representing the donors. Donors, those who donate funds to you. So she's there to tell you what to do with that fund that they gave you. But you're not aware that there are other things they have to do while they're there. You have to explain your agenda for the year. And they have to make a report back to the nation where they came from. And after making that report, what do you think that decision makers in their nation is doing? They are countering every agenda you have. For a paltry $100 million, somebody will get to know everything about your economic plan for the year and then see your weaknesses. Global economics is global warfare. Did you hear what I just said? Global economics is global warfare. The people you're dealing with do not see economics as a win and take. They don't see it. What they see is the winner takes all. So what I'm trying to bring to you is that we need to change that mentality that we should continue exporting raw materials. You got to give it to the government that in Uganda you cannot export wood. You don't need an European to teach you how to make furnitures. Wood is used for furnitures. He says process the wood before you export it. There are nations who say process the goods. You cannot export anything raw again. Ghana has done it with cocoa. They tried to fight Ghana. What did Ghana do? They squeezed them with the loans, squeezed them with the renegotiation of their interest rate, and the Ghana government say we're going to pay our debts with gold. They have abundance of gold. They don't need to sell their gold to get dollar to now pay you. They say, I will pay with my gold. I don't need to go somewhere to get the gold. It's on the ground. Did you notice everything changed? This is just 2023. You need to know what's going on in the global market. You are part of a global citizen. The Ghana economy tanked for a while. Inflation reached 60%. Go check now. It's down to half. And it's going to keep going down. And yet, Ghana resisted exporting cocoa without processing it. What it means is that some factories somewhere would be now looking for a way to come to Ghana to set up their factory where the processing of cocoa is done. So that chocolate will be made in Ghana, and I have already seen chocolates made in Ghana in Europe. If you look at cashew nuts, the price of cashew raw and the price of processed cashew that is ready to eat is 12 times more. That means if I sell raw cashew $1 a kilogram, I sell a processed cashew $12 a kilogram. Tell me how much technology you need to process cashew. Peeling it and roasting it? Why are we exporting cashew anywhere in the world? Do you know the biggest exporter of cashew in the whole world is Vietnam? Yet Vietnam comes to Nigeria. Nigeria has the biggest plantation of cashew in the whole of Africa. They come to Nigeria and buy cashew raw, goes to Vietnam to export it, process it, and still sells it cheaper than the one that came from Nigeria. Is that not a travesty? Do you know that Uganda has the greatest and the best pineapple in the whole world? The best pineapple in the whole world is from Uganda. Your pineapple, because that's what you know from birth, is completely different from pineapple everywhere in the world. If you eat pineapple here and go to Western country and eat pineapple, you will hate pineapple. The fiber, you chew it like chewing gum and throw the fiber out. While your pineapple here, you melt in your mouth and you swallow everything. Some pineapple in other countries is like sugar cane. You're not able to swallow the sugar cane fiber, do you? But you eat your pineapple and swallow everything.
In South Africa, it's just so small.
Yeah. In South Africa, he's saying it's so small. So there are so many things Uganda has. You guys don't eat pepper, habanero. Do you know how much habanero costs right now in Europe? Check $10 a kilogram. How much do you buy habanero here now? Less than $1. Less than $1. This doesn't need processing. You don't need to do anything. Just do the proper post-harvest handling. That's all. Don't have pesticide. Don't have chemicals. That's all you need. Get it from the farm, clean it very well, sort it well, and export. What you bought for $1 sells for $10 over there. So let's say there are 3 middlemen in the middle. You bought it for $1, paid $1 for transport, and then sell it over there for $5. You still made a good lot of money. What would it cost to the mango and the fruits that spoil in this country to process it and put it into dust? Fruits are put in dust to use in the industrial factory. Once you want to make a juice, you add water back and you have a juice. Do you think it costs you up to $100,000 to convert any juice to dust? Not much. We're not talking big things here. We're not talking billions of dollars. We're talking about simple things you spend in a wedding ceremony to impress your neighbors. The average middle class in Africa spend at least $100,000 to do a wedding. And then 2 years later, they're begging for food to pay rent. Priorities. Remember, I'm changing your paradigm shift. A guy wins a lottery for $100,000. She wants to buy a car for $50,000. There are people who have a car more expensive than the house they are renting. Paradigm shift. The African man has been destroyed in his self-confidence that he thinks he must impress the others to be feeling good about himself. Even in your communities, and also now the whole of Africa is trying to impress the world. You don't need to impress anybody. Look at China. They're not democratic. They don't care about democracy. And they've built the strongest economy. And they're about to overtake America in the next 5 years. The only way a nation becomes sustainably progressive is believing in itself, believing in the nation, and believing in yourself as a human being, believing in the Ugandan agenda. The Ugandan agenda translates to progress in financial world. It don't matter if it's good or bad, there must be some agenda. And what's that agenda? Process what you make and put it in the market at the global market level. then you will demand for global price. I am part of Exporters Association, and I see them discussing. And the Ugandans living in London and outside the country are telling the exporters here, why is your price higher than every other place in the world? And yet the cost of labor here is lower than everybody else. Nobody has come in the middle to teach people how to do the economy of scale. Instead of exporting 100 kilograms and 200 kilograms and 500 kilograms, export 10,000. Your cargo cost will be low. Every cost, handling charges is fixed. Inspection charges is fixed. So if I export 10,000, okay, let's even say 3,000 kilograms, and you export 200 kilograms, they will charge you 500 pounds in London to expect it. So the guy that exported 3,000, his cost is reduced. The cargo company is reduced. Process your things before you export. Turn your country, Uganda, East Africa, Africa, into a manufacturing hub. Why do you think they give you loan to buy cars faster than they give you loan to build a factory? Why do you think there was politics about your pipeline funding, but they will give you money to host NAM, for example? Why do you think that development agencies would give you 100 million, 80 million will go to seminars and programs and lectures and write-ups that mean nothing? Yet 80 million is spent. We had a brother who was working for the United Nations for Ethiopia on water. He spends 20 million every year but never sank one borehole. Seminars, conferences. Why do you borrow money at ease for frivolous things and hardly get long-term loan for manufacturing? Because the moment you start manufacturing, your raw materials before you export it, you are going to bankrupt many companies in the other side. How many of you watched the video recently trending that Niger came to be the 4th fastest growing economy in Africa? They were getting $15 per kilogram of their uranium from France. And France was selling that same uranium for $208. Can you imagine the difference? $15 versus $208. At its highest level. My brother say exploitation. At its highest level. So by just changing the government and then being able to sell direct to the global market, Niger is making more than 10 times what they are making. We're discussing global dynamics because you need to become a global citizen. Everything you do here has its reverberation in the global market. Okay, let's take example of Nigeria. The Nigerian youth has started thinking global since 2010. I knew when it was going on. Standard Bank London was telling some of my friends that they are investing in Nigeria entertainment. I'm like, how does Wall Street invest in entertainment? Not knowing that they've done their research. And today, the Nigerian entertainment industry is making more than $3 billion every year. 3 billion is more than many countries get in the export of all their cocoa, sugar, or cotton. Now, because those boys were thinking global, investors came. Had they been thinking local, would they come? No. Now, today, do you know that Nigeria is knocking on the door as being recognized as a global power? Yet, the leadership there is messing up. Why I'm trying to say this is you can't have the excuse of who is leading you. If you are ready to go to the global market, nobody can stop you. If you package something today and put it on YouTube and people buy it, Would anybody stop you? Facebook? Amazon? Nobody can stop you. So the excuse of until leadership, no, leadership is very important. And I can tell you, leadership of this nation is trying to really carry the masses around. I'm telling you. But whether they are doing all they're supposed to do or not, it is not leadership that is stopping you from being who God created you to be. Daniel was in captivity, yet he was prominent in Babylon. Was he not? Was he not? Joseph was a slave in Egypt. Was he not prominent? Am I communicating? We need to change this mentality. We need to change our thoughts. We need to change our paradigm must shift. You must think global. You are a global citizen. If you don't think global, you will not be in effect completely. Non-effect. Okay? Think global. Okay? If you keep manufacturing and service in the continent, what will happen? The West will come here. Money flows opportunities. Money follows opportunity. Are you with me? There is so many things Uganda is exporting now. If Uganda and his neighbors, let's say Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, say we will not export raw coffee. If they make a law, the whole of East Africa, that no more export of raw coffee. You only export roasted coffee. Do you know 1 year or 2 years they might resist you, but after a while everybody will come here and start setting up processing plants for coffee. Do you know why? Because the price of coffee will shoot up in the whole world. And once price goes up, individual selfish need of the coffee sector will be looking for how to bring their cost down. And they will come to the source and set up factories in the source. It's only economic sense that if you want to set up a factory, you either set it up near your source or near your market. When it comes to their own product, they put it near the source. When it comes to your own product, they put it near the market. So you now have to carry your product to them in order to bring it to the market. So why don't you set up all processing in hand? Finally, for today, I'm going to round up. The diaspora community is needed. I hope leadership is listening. The diaspora community of every nation plays a vital role in that nation's development. If you don't think of your nation wherever you are in the world, you're a vagabond. And I can tell you, no matter how people hate on your country, when you live outside the country, you have your heart in that nation. I lived 30 years of my life outside of my nation. And whenever I hear good news about my nation, it gladdens my heart. It doesn't matter what I think about the nation leadership. So the point is, you were wired to be a Ugandan. You were created in Uganda to play a role. No matter how far you go to the end of the world, anything good about Uganda will gladden your heart. So if Uganda prospers, you will prosper. Prosperity is not about bank account only. Prosperity is your soul, your health, and then the bank account. Are we together? Yes. So my paradigm shift, this today teaching is about paradigm shift. Patriotism is not taught. It is in you. Did you hear me? Patriotism is not taught. It is in you. The only thing that happens is when a charismatic leader comes, they will bring out the patriotism that is already hidden in you. Are we together? If a charismatic leader comes, the people's attention is given to him. And when you give him the attention and he does positive with that attention, you flourish. You feel invisible. Remember today, paradigm shift. We want to make our people understand that the first people in America that came and changed their own lot back home were the Italians. In the early 60s, the Italians were newcomers in America. And they did change the lot back in Italy. The next came the Irish. Ireland was always a poor country in Europe. But the Irish people that migrated to America became prominent. They never forget back home. Even the present president is from Ireland. Biden is originally from Ireland. There's a documentary where he went to where he originated as the president of America. So diaspora community is always important in a nation's development. You see the Indians. The Indians started with providing basic low service in IT to America. Before long, the companies in America started opening offices in India. And now India has become an IT hub. The next last people were Chinese. The Chinese in America all migrated back to China in the early 90s, the early 2000s, and they helped their country develop. Now the Nigerians in America are making waves. And whenever you show up on the door, they're going to write stories negative about you. If you succumb to it, then you will not get in. But if you break the door and get in, you will be celebrated and welcomed. Uganda should be built by Ugandans. I'm a foreigner here. I'm here to contribute my bit. But if you don't buy into your agenda, Uganda agenda, this nation will not get there. My prayer is that everyone watching me on television and you that is here, that you must know that nobody will develop this nation except Ugandans. God bless you.